All right, what is up, people? And welcome to the first tutorial on the Frame by Frame Figures YouTube channel. Today, we'll be learning how to make your character or figure blink in stop motion animation. Now, if you are doing claymation, most often in that kind of media, people will just put like little dabs of clay over the eyes to simulate the blinking and stuff like that. Or sometimes people, even if they're doing regular stop motion, like with figures, they may actually, print out the skin tone and stick little things on the eyes, or even for the mouth animation, they may stick little paper mouths on the figures and stuff. I prefer working very digitally when it comes to blinking, speaking, all that stuff, just because I think there's a lot more room for correction, and I can, basically change. I have more options of changing what I originally did than if I were to actually physically put like paper for a mouth or stuff like that. And you have to do a lot more precise timing and stuff if you're doing that kind of thing too. So I like to have the digital aspect where I can basically Photoshop everything. And I use Photoshop as a verb, not mean I'm actually using Photoshop. We're going to be using GIMP in this tutorial. But I want to show you an example of what I'm talking about when I say how to make your figure or character blink, right? So if you look here, I have a short example, a small example of a video that I've made of a horse chewing, and also it blinks. So we're just going to look at this real quick. Yeah, so you see the horse is chewing, and I just blinked, okay? And I personally, I think this was done at 12 frames per second. And I find that at that frame rate, a blink to look realistic should last about 2 frames, right? And if you guys would like to see in the future how to actually animate this chewing, because this is just a still image of a horse that I photographed, a toy horse that I have on a green screen, and I animated the chewing in GIMP, which is basically a free version of Photoshop, right? Free thing similar to Photoshop. So yeah, if you want to see how to do this, the chewing and all that stuff in another video, please feel free to let me know in the comments below, okay? So now we're gonna head over to GIMP. Now GIMP is free, and as far as I know, it is basically, if not as powerful as Photoshop, it is like pretty close. And I've been using GIMP for many, many years. Of course, if you have a lot of experience with GIMP, you should be able to use Photoshop very easily as well. I have used it briefly in the past, but when I first used Photoshop, I was given an opportunity to use it through like a trial that I had at some camp. So I didn't have to pay for it, but then I stopped paying and all that stuff. I didn't have access to Photoshop basically, and GIMP was free. So I ended up using GIMP for many years now. But anyways, let's get into it. So here we see a character that this is a composite image. So what I mean by that is there are many layers to this image, and this is not just one image. But let me show you, for example, if I click this layer group over here, his head disappears and you see the other guy behind there, right? So this is a composite image. The background and all that stuff is separate, right? And I've just basically made this Frankenstein character, so to speak, for this tutorial, okay? So we'll zoom in, and you want to get close to the eyes. And what I'd recommend is you want to work non-destructively. So you don't want to just start painting all over the original image. What you can do is actually find the layer with the face, which for me is this, right? This is the layer with the face. And you can right click and click duplicate layer, okay? And then turn off the original. So that way, when we change this layer, even if we say, for example, let's say I got a airbrush, right? And I just did all this stuff all over his face. I can turn that layer off and get the original face back, right? Because I copied it, so I would have 2 versions to work with. So the original is down here, and the one that I just messed up is up here. And I can press Control Z to undo what I just did, or I could do Control Y to redo, and I could actually click a button. I could do Edit, and then Undo, Edit, Undo, and now that stuff is gone. So you can either do the keyboard shortcut or choose the buttons on the menu up there. So to actually, let me actually get this out. Hold on. There we go. All right, now it's gone. So to actually make this character blink, you have, I guess, a few different options. There are already two options that I am aware of. One of them is the clone tool, and then the other one is just using a paintbrush, right? So I'm going to be showing you how to do it with the clone tool and also the smudge tool, possibly because I think is much more effective. So the clone tool is over here. You can like hold down, left click and hold to see the other options of tools you have in this section. And we want the clone, right? So to use this, if you click there, to use this, let me reduce the brush size. You don't want it to be too huge. And I'm going to really zoom in very close because I want to see very well what I'm doing. Okay. So we zoom in. Oh, we zoom in like this. And then the way this works is you press Control and then you left click to select an area you want to basically copy or duplicate. So let's say, for example, let me redo that. I'll click here, like around here. Control, click, right? And then if I click down here, it's going to duplicate that image. And then if I drag like this, the tool is going to follow along with me, you see? And if you release and click again, it will actually duplicate the exact same space, but it basically moves how you move. So if I move like this, the one over here is going to move that same direction. If I move like this, it's going to move that direction. So you got to basically keep a close eye on what exactly you're copying and try to make it look as realistic as possible for the purposes of which you're using the tool. So for this, I'm thinking about whether I want to keep this brown line here, and I guess not. Now, I am by no means an anatomy expert. Okay, this is kind of just a little hobby for me here. I'm not like a professional, in the industry for 20 years and all that stuff. I'm just a dude on his laptop here. So let me, I guess I'll try this one. And I'll basically try to leave this part here. Hope you can see where I'm highlighting. Let me change to this tool. I'll try to leave this part here untouched and just cover this pink up to this pink area you see here, because that is of course, the top of the bottom eyelid, right? So I want to cover basically from here up to here with his skin tone to simulate a blinking eye. So let's get back the clone tool. I'm gonna select like here. So Control, click, and then I'm gonna try to just basically cover that up like that, right? Although this brush might be a bit too big. Let me make this brush a little smaller. I press Control Z to undo there, to undo what I did. And I can press Control Y to redo, Control Z to undo. And I'm going to reduce the brush size probably to like, let's try 10. All right. Well, that's a little too small, I think. Let's do 12. All right, that should be better. So I want to basically duplicate his flesh tone and cover up his eye with that tone. So Control, let me click like here. And then I'm going to click on this area and click and hold, and drag over there, right? Oh, now my mouse has gone a little too far. And you see, if I bring it down like this, it's going to start actually copying the eye itself. So you have to be very aware of where you're copying with this thing. So let's try that again. And this may involve some trial and error, especially if you're new to using this tool like I am. I've only used this tool like maybe once or twice before this tutorial. I didn't even know it existed until recently. And I was so amazed when I first saw it. I was like, that is in GIMP? I had no idea, right? Let me undo that. And I want to get rid of this right here probably. Or know what? Let me Control and click this so I can just copy the stuff that I've already copied, right? And then Control click here, and then cover up this part, right? Control click here, And then, okay, so his eyelid. Oh, Control Z. All right, let me do here. All right, so now that, of course, doesn't look very great right now. Okay, but we can use the smudge tool. If we go over here, click the smudge tool. Probably make it a little bit bigger, like 24. Let's see. And I'm going to just drag across this image to kind of smooth it out and blur the edges of it, right? And just be a little artistic with it, right? And see how it results, you know? So let's see. Let me make this a little smaller so I can get in the corner there, the corner of his eye. And you can kind of use the smudge tool, very similar to a paintbrush. It's just that the difference between this and the paintbrush is you're actually using the pixels that are already on the image and just kind of blurring them out and spreading them out and stuff like that, right? So that looks a lot better. It does look a bit bright, I would say, but we're not going to be zoomed in super close. And also, remember, a blink is not supposed to last that long. It's going to be like, a second maximum, of course. Well, really less than a second. It don't take a whole second to blink, I don't think. So this image is going to be on the screen for less than a second. Okay. So let's zoom out and once more, right? 50%. And let me see if I try to well, I can't really hide that here, but no, when I put my hand over it, that could be a blink. Doesn't look perfect, but I think it may be good enough. In fact, I may just try to cover that pink up, not at the bottom there. Yeah, that pink down there. Might try to cover that up a bit too. Just, by dragging smudging these pixels down to get rid of some of that pink there to make it less prominent, right? And I will say I don't like how light the color is. So I'm gonna try to see. Let me do the color picker tool, which is right here. Click that and choose more of a browner looking skin tone. I could do like over here, I guess, and then choose the brush tool, which if I double click here, paintbrush, I can increase the size. I can also change the actual brush itself, make it a little feathered edge. I choose the feathered edge version there. I want to make it a bit smaller than this. This is too big, right? That is also too small. And let me see if I change the opacity, which is over here. I can lower the opacity to oh, not that, sorry. I want to change the brush opacity, which is over here, my bad. To like 43, 46.3. I just want to lightly brush over this to make it look a little darker, like that, right? Just want to make it a little bit darker. I feel like it's just too bright. And this really, I think, is helping to make it look more realistic, right? And not look like basically a white eye. It looked kind of like an eye before. Now that looks a lot better. So you go to 100%, and that looks a lot better than before, right? Now, of course, we still have this part here, which, looks like if his eyelid is not closed. So I'm going to try the clone tool on that area, and we'll see, or rather, let me just use the smudge tool. Yeah, this is the smudge tool. Let me just try the smudge tool and see if we can kind of just like smudge some of that away, right? To make it look less pronounced. Like if his eyelid is now closed. So you shouldn't see that fold in his eye as much as you did before. And if you mess up, you can always press undo. But just note that with GIMP, if you, let's say, for example, I did this, right? Did all of this stuff right here, yeah? And I wanted to undo just this part of it, I can't, because it's going to basically register the entire time I was holding down the click button as one action, right? So if you want to be able to undo certain parts, you'd have to work like click like that, click like that. And then you could undo individual movements. So that's something to note with GIMP, and I believe Photoshop is the same. So let me just, do this smudge tool thing, try to get this eyelid or fold to kind of disappear, right? And remember, this doesn't have to be super pretty because first of all, it's only going to be on the screen for like less than a second. And also, we're not going to be zoomed in super close. If this was like a super close zoomed in shot I was trying to create, then I would probably have to take a bit more care and try to make it look as perfect as I could, right? But you just want to get this smudge tool over here. You just want to make it look like his eyelid isn't folded up like it was before, right? So just smudge tool. Yeah. All right. All right. So get that. Now I will mention as well, it would have been great if I had done the eyelid on an image on a layer by itself. However, if you do that, then you wouldn't really be able to use the smudge tool very effectively because to use the smudge tool, you need something to smudge. And if you have a transparent image or transparent layer, my bad, then you're not going to be able to smudge anything. Okay, so the smudge tool works best on a layer with an image which you are smudging, right? So that is why it is actually not a problem this time around. So I'm going to save this, okay? And it takes a little while. Let me turn the original face back on. I'm going to turn this layer off. And you see now, it looks like that eye is closing, right? Now, it's of course a very quick thing. If you want to be, how do we say? If you want to be super detailed, then you could do one layer where his eye is half closed and then another layer where his eye is completely closed. Or even you could do 1/6 of the way, 2/6, 3/6, and like actually animate his eyelid going downwards, right? But since a blink only lasts 2 frames or maybe even less based on what you're looking for, I'm not going to worry about that because it's going to happen very quickly. There's going to be a quick blink like that, right? And when you do that, it creates the illusion of his lid opening and closing. So now we're going to do the other eye. And you could do two things for that one. You could actually, like, let's say we could duplicate this layer. Instead of doing all that stuff all over again from scratch, we could duplicate this layer again, right? So now we have 2 layers with the one eye closed. And on this layer, we could actually crop around his eyelid that we just worked with. We can go up here and click the free select tool, which looks kind of like a lasso, right? And we could actually go around what we just did, okay? And select it, right? So just go around and select it, close that, and then press either Control X to cut it or Control C to just copy it. I'll do Control C to copy it, and then press Control V to paste what you just copied. And you can press Shift, this is on PC, of course, Shift Control N to put that on a new layer. So if you turn these layers off, now we have his eye right there on a layer by itself, okay? And so we're going to turn that off, turn this back on. This is the blinking one, the original blinking version. And for his eye, we can actually flip it. If we see here, we double click over here, there's a flip tool. So you can flip that, right? And then use the move tool to drag it over here, okay? So now we have both eyes closed, okay? And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to merge this layer to the original, or not the original, but the layer that we first copied from the blinking. Let me just name these. I should probably name these layers to make it less confusing. So we call the original layer original. Okay. And then we have, let's call that, was it left blink? And then we're going to call this right blink. Okay. So let me turn this layer off. My bad there. Turn this layer off. And then, so this is the original image we started with from the beginning. This is the layer with one eye closed that we just finished. And then this is the same, this is the copy of that layer, but we have the actual eye copied over to this side. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to merge this layer here, which is just the eye. I'm going to merge that down to this layer, which is a copy of the other layer. So right click, merge down. And now those are both one layer. And actually, if we just turn this off, you'll see we now have an almost complete blinking sequence. But what I want to do, the reason I merge these is because, as I mentioned, with the smudge tool, it's not going to work very well if you're smudging over transparency, right? So I merged these down so that I could smudge these pixels into this eyelid and all that stuff. So we're going to go to the smudge tool again. Smudge tool's over here. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. 15, no, a little too small. 21, okay, that should be good enough. And I'm going to, basically try to make this eye look like it belongs here and it's not a big cropped out pasted image, right? So just smoothing the edges out and stuff, moving those pixels around, making it nice and smooth, like this. And I want to look at the other eye for some reference. Okay, so it's looking pretty similar, right? Just going to smudge this dark part here a bit, right? All right. And I think that looks pretty solid already. Just giving a few finishing touches. And I think that should be good enough, honestly. I don't think I need to do much more. All right. So we're going to zoom out now to like 150%. Okay. And you see, it looks like his eyes are closed, right? Which is the goal because you want him to be blinking. So 50%. All right. And I'm Control S to save, right? Now remember, if I was trying to create a close-up shot of somebody's eyes closed, I may try to make this look a bit better than it looks right now. Because I think it looks pretty good, but you can tell that someone's eyes, like you can tell that we smudged it up and all that stuff if you look at it really close up. And it looks kind of like those Greek statues where the eyes are blank. It looks kind of like that. But since this is going to be on the screen for a very short period of time, we don't need to worry about that. All right. So Control S to save, and I recommend saving frequently because if GIMP crashes, you're going to lose everything you didn't save. So now we have, oh yeah, let me, hold on. So you'll notice around the neck there, when I have both of these layers on at the same time, it looks like, oh, his neck looks bigger. That's because there's multiple layers. But so we have this, his eyes closed. And then we have this, his eyes open, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save both of these images, okay? So to save an image, or rather to export the image, let me just zoom out, give you a good full look there, right? I'm going to export the original. So we're going to click File, Export As. And then this is actually a character in the upcoming series, God's Last King. I was going to say show, then I said series, so I said series. But upcoming series, God's Last King, called Alpheus. And so this originally started as a test for me to make him look older. Because if you look here, if I turn these layers off, you'll see that the original image, he didn't have beard or hair. So I added those in here, right? But let's go save. So File, Export As. Let's call it Alpheus Blink 1.jpg. You don't really need a PNG unless you have transparency. So we don't have any transparency in this image. So let's go to Documents, frame by frame figures, tutorials, blinking tutorial, and I'm going to create I'll just leave it there. So export. Okay. Save that. Click export again. Now we're going to also save this one, which is in blinking. So file, export as Alpheus Blink 2. Okay. Export. And then export again. And now we're going to head over to Adobe Premiere Pro, where I'm going to show you what this can look like if you actually animate it in a video. All right, guys, I decided to change one thing before we go to Premiere. My bad. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to export this with a transparent background, or in other words, with no background. So I can change the background in Premiere Pro and add some cool special effects and stuff to give you a very cool looking final product instead of just a basic, boring, he blinks and that's it. I want it to look kind of cool. So here we are. I'm going to scroll down to this background layer that I have here, turn it off. And now these like gray squares and stuff, this represents transparency. That means there's nothing there, and I can literally take him and put him on whatever background I want if I export it in the correct way. So we're going to click File, Export As, Alpheus Blink 1.png. And you can name it whatever you want, but make sure that it is called, the file extension is PNG, because JPGs will not support the transparent background. So click Export. I think with the JPG, you'll actually see those squares and stuff on your final image, which you do not want. Click Export again, and it will take a bit longer since, as far as I understand, PNGs are a bit larger files than JPGs are. So it's going to take a bit longer to export this. And it should be done now. All right. And now we're going to get the layer with his eyes closed. Make sure you deselect the other one so you don't have that thick neck thing going on there, right? And then File, Export As, Alpheus Blink 2.png. Okay. Click Export. Export again. And it'll save it. Just give it a little bit of time. Just patiently waiting for it to export. All right, and that's good. I'm just going to save just because I always save. And now we're going to head over to Premiere Pro. So right here, Premiere Pro. Now you can use whatever video editing software you want to use. You can use Wondershare, Filmora. I don't think Filmora is free, but it is something that you can do a one-time purchase. You can get like a lifetime access to that product. There's other options like Sony Vegas and stuff, which I think is also a paid product. Premiere Pro, I just really like Premiere a lot, and I used it at university, so I'm very familiar with it, very comfortable with it. And I think it can do basically everything I want it to do. So I love Premiere, and so I pay the monthly subscription for it, right? I think it's like $40-something a month. I got a deal for Black Friday, and I get the whole Creative Cloud or whatever. So yeah. All right, so we're going to start a new project, right? File, New, Project. And I'm going to name it Alpheus Blink Tutorial. Okay. And you're going to choose where you want to save it. So choose location. I'm going to go to Blinking Tutorial here and click Select Folder. Okay. I don't know why that just happened. And so I've chosen the folder. And now before this part right here, I don't understand. There's some stuff that's a little confusing. Let me click Documents and then find the stuff that I want to bring into the project. Click Tutorials, Blinking Tutorial, and then I'm going to select both of these, right? Select the two of these, and then I'm going to name the sequence Blink Test, and I'm going to press Create, right? Yeah. All right. So now I have a sequence with these two images on it. However, unfortunately, they made the sequence the same resolution as the files, which I don't want. So I'm going to create another new sequence, File, New, Sequence. And I'm going to choose DSLR 1080p 30. You can choose whatever frame rate you want. You can change the frame rate after this part as well. Let me name this Blink Test. Correct. That's okay. Now I have a new sequence that is 1920 by 1080, which is the dimensions that I actually want. And if you want to change the frame rate of your sequence, you can click sequence up here, sequence settings, and you can change the frame rate right here, right? I don't want to change the frame rate. Actually, you know what? Let me do 12 frames per second. Yeah, 12 frames per second, and then press OK. All right, so 12 frames per second, 1080p HD, right? So we're gonna drag and drop the one with him not blinking here, okay? And it's kind of huge, so let me zoom in. Now you see my image is very, very short duration. That's because I actually changed my settings. Since I do a lot of stop motion, I mean my images last only 1 frame. And you can actually edit that. If you click edit, preferences, I think playback. Let's see, playback, or it might be timeline. Yeah, so you can change right here. Forgive me for that. Still image default duration, I have it set to 2 frames. My bad, 2 frames instead of 1 frame. You can change this to whatever you want. You can put it to 10 frames, 13 frames, whatever. However long you want an image to default last on your timeline. But I have it set to 2 frames, okay? That's how you can change that if you want to. Now, since this image is so large on this screen right now, I'm going to right click. If I can just get a good, when it's so small, it's kind of hard to get the options to pop up. Yeah, it can be a little bit of a pain. Hold on. All right, let me expand the size of it. That should help. Yeah. So then set to frame size, and there we go. Now it is actually in a good view, right? And I can carry this to whatever duration I want. I'll put it like there. I'm going to bring in the one with him blinking and put it next to it, right? Now this one's actually going to last 2 frames no matter what. So set to frame size, right click, set to frame size, same thing. And then if I want to just copy the image with him not blinking, like copy this one behind here, I can click on it, press and hold Alt, and then move this and release. And now I have a copy of it right here. Can we get back to the project? Yeah. So now I have a copy of it right here. Okay. That's how you copy an image in Premiere. So let me drag that there. Okay. And if you're working in Premiere and you notice that the stuff is not like, so it snaps together there, if that's not happening, you want to press S on your keyboard to turn snapping on, or you can choose to click this thing here. You want to have that on for snapping, and that should solve your problem. So let me see now. All right, so here we have him, and you see the blink. It was really fast, a little too quick. I want you to see him a little longer than that. So let me extend the duration of this. Then I'm going to extend the duration of this by clicking the edge and using that little red symbol, right? And you saw him blink just now, right? Like that. And that could be the whole tutorial right there, okay? But I want to actually add a lot of cool special effects and stuff just to make it look like a really cool thing. Because I hate wasting cool imagery that I've edited. So if I can make a cool little thing with it, then that's totally awesome. So let's extend the duration of these things here. And what I'm going to do, so this is, of course, this tutorial was just the blinking part. So if you actually press Control and the tilde key, which is the key right under Escape on your PC, Control and tilde, you can full screen. If I press the space bar to play, we're going to see him blink now. So hold on. So there you go. Now, because it's not rendered, is why it went so blurry. So I can actually choose Sequence, Render Into Out, and that will render the images so that it won't go blurry like that. Press play, and look. There, your character just blinked. Good for you, right? Your character just blinked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bunch of cool special effects to this, and we're going to return with all that stuff added on there, and I'll show you guys the final product. All right, guys, so I've completed editing the final product, and now I'm going to export it and show you guys what it looks like. So to export in Premiere, you click export up here, you choose the name, and I'll just call it Alpheus Blink Test, right? And it's already in the right folder. So then we're just going to click, I can either export right here, or I can send it to the media encoder. But I usually only send things to the media encoder when it's like a very long video. It's going to take a long time This is a very short little clip, so just export right here. And it should be finished very soon. This is very short. All right, so it says it's done. And now I'm going to show you all and press play. So that is it. That is the blinking tutorial, how to make your character blink. And I hope you guys found this useful and it helps with your animation, your stop motion and stuff like that. And hopefully there'll be more tutorials in the future. So please subscribe, like, comment, share your ideas, share tips and stuff to like maybe even make this process faster and smoother. Whatever you feel like. Once it's constructive and helpful is welcome. So take care and I wish you all well.